All right. Cool. Let me know if everybody hears me okay and all that good stuff. I'll give it a second. Hello, Facebook. Hello, YouTube. I will do my best to monitor both. Let me do some hellos really quick. So far, we got Randy Wilcox, Albert Howard, James W., William Laird, and Boise Bronco over on YouTube. Darren Mackey. Thanks for joining us. Over here on the Facebook, we have Ian Ramos, Kim Lee, Timber Cavassian, Richard. Richard, is it Bastable or Bastable? It's been bugging me. I need to know. Tom O'Hanlon, what's up, Tom? Del Clayman. I think you're scrolling up on me. Let me see if I can shrink this. Oh, look at that. Much better. Joel Canonico, Scott Bannister, Ron Duros. Oh, Lauren. Hi, Lauren. Amory, Jarrett, Andrew Cole, Ethan Swales, Steve Johnson, David Stoller. How you doing, guys? I'm going to launch right into it because basically I've been gone a lot, and I'm trying to catch up on some of the questions I've been messaged and emailed, so I'm going to jump right into that right now. Oh, wait, I think I'm going to... You know what? Let me start with a little musical number. How about that? That's a better way to do this. You guys hear that? That sound okay? Can you hear that? Alright, cool. Alright, let's start this little thing. Oh, there you go. Let's get everybody feeling good. That's enough of that. That was a little, just a 4-chord jam thing that my buddy Ernie showed me. It's a good way to practice. And for those of you who want to know what that is, that's basically just A minor 7th, D 7th, G major 7th, E altered with some sort of stuff on it. And the idea behind that is you get to practice your 2-5-1s if you're a jazz guy, and then you get to change it up with the 5 of 2 with the dominant sort of thing. So that's the idea there. Anyway, so on to the Q&A. Everything sound okay? If something sounds funky, let me know, and I'll try to fix it. All right, so welcome to, I guess this is a Band Geek live stream, so this is really cool today. So I just got back from Europe with Blue Oyster Cult. It was a very long trip, and there were a lot of questions in my inbox on Facebook, YouTube, and email, so I'm going to try to cover a lot of those questions today. So let me just hit it right here. Okay, first question. This is from Manny Alzaga. Did you guys record any shows in Europe? Well, I recorded them personally on my little Zoom recorder, and if you guys watched here, I posted a lot of the stuff on Facebook and some Instagram. Oh, hi, John Anthony DeMeo. What's up? Hey, Cheryl Peterson. Hi, everybody. Oh, we have another question here. How is it touring with the Queensrÿche guys? I'm going to get back to that. Oh, wow. Okay, a lot of questions right now. Okay, I'm going to try to get through these as quickly as possible. This is cool. All right, cool. So, back to Manny's question. Did we record any shows in Europe? Yes, I recorded them. I have this Zoom recorder. I'll show you right here. This is a Zoom Q2N. This is my new toy that I've been using. And it's a really cool, like, GoPro for musicians, I guess you would call it. And I recorded most of the shows just really for my own archives. I don't think I'm going to be posting anything because I don't think that would be kosher. But, you know, for me to have an archive of it and the whole trip is really cool. And I'm posting a couple little things to show people. We did record the whole London show. We played Indigo at the O2 in London, and we recorded that one, professionally recorded, because we did the entire first Blue Oyster Cult album, like the whole thing in its entirety, and that was recorded. I'm not sure what the deal is with the release date on that, but that was recorded. So I hope that answers Manny's question. Okay, let's go to a live question now. What was it like playing with Queensrÿche? Who asked that question? Oh, Joe Sharp. Okay. How was it touring with the Queensrÿche guys? It was really cool. One of the coolest moments of that whole thing is we were playing this club called the Z7 Club in Switzerland, which is a really cool place. It's a really cool club, and the staff there is very nice. And Queensrÿche was doing their... they were doing their sound check, and there was nobody in the room except for me. So I was sitting down in an empty venue watching Queensrÿche play I Don't Believe in Love, which is my favorite Queensrÿche song, and that was really awesome. And all those guys were really nice. I got to hang out with all of them. The really interesting thing that I found about that is I was super excited to meet them, and they were super excited to meet Don and Eric, because they're huge Blue Oyster Cult fans. And that was something I noticed quite a bit on this tour. We would be playing a lot of these really heavy metal festivals, bands way heavier than us, and you sort of like scratch your head saying like, man, this kind of seems odd that we're on this bill. But then like we'd be sitting in catering, eating dinner, and all of these bands, these really hard metal bands, would come up to Buck and Eric and say, oh my God, we're really influenced by you guys. You know, we listened to all your records when we were starting out. And that was really cool to see, you know, the younger generation of metal bands come and do the We're Not Worthy. And that's when it sort of clicked to me, because, you know, at first I was like, why are we on these metal bills? But then I got it, that this is part of the lineage of this kind of music. And I guess that's why Blue Oyster Cult gets that sort of proto-metal label, if that's a thing. So, yeah, the Queensrÿche guys were awesome. We did a few gigs with them and really got to know them. The funny thing about that is their bass player, he he told me, I'm gonna write your set, and every gig we did, he goes, okay, tonight I want to hear Hot Rails to Hell, I want to hear Stairway to the Stars, and he had like a whole set list that he would write, and and he stumped us a few times. So let's go back to that was that question. So thank you for that. Let's go back to another question here that I have written down, and this is from Robbie Lundgren. How many songs does BOC have to select from in making a set list? That's a really good question. It's been growing steadily, especially since we did last year. We did the whole Agents of Fortune album, and this year we did the whole first album. So the list has grown quite a bit, and Eric really threw in a lot of curveballs for us, especially in Scotland. I don't know why in particular it was that gig. You'll have to ask him, but I mean, and that gig, that was the only time on the tour, actually in a few months, that we did Joan Crawford, and I posted that little video clip, and the fear and panic you see in that video is real because we haven't done that in a while. So that was a trip, and then Astronomy, just for that gig, and yeah, so there's quite a few. If I had to guess, I'd say maybe 40 tunes or 50 tunes. I have to sit down and count it, but. Okay, favorite gig or crowd in Europe? That's from Robert Getz, and the answer to that again is Scotland. That was my favorite gig. It was fun, and the set list was cool, and I thought everybody played really well. That was my favorite gig of the tour, hands down. Okay, I'll go back to another question from here. So. Denny Ablak, I hope I'm saying that right. I apologize if I'm butchering that. He wants to know any new song recordings. So I guess I can answer that in two ways because on the Blue Oyster Cult front, I'm not sure because I'm not really involved in that sort of thing. The last live stream we did, I did it with Eric Bloom, and if you guys watched that, he kind of dropped a bomb on everybody saying that they're in talks to do a new album, and that's the last I've heard of it because. Quite frankly, we've been working too hard. This has been a very crazy summer for us. So we've been just concentrating on doing the gigs and making those as best as we can and getting the first album material ready. And so we haven't really talked about that. But I got very excited when I heard that news. I was probably as excited as some of you guys for that because, as you know, I've never recorded an album with these guys. So I might have gotten a little crazy, and as soon as I heard that, I wrote like 8 songs, and I showed them to Eric, and I was like, I think he was like, "Settle down, Beavis." But yeah, so I'm very excited about it. I hope it happens, and I don't really know anything, but I've been trying to write stuff. It would be great to contribute to that if possible. But I also write other things like my own stuff. I actually have enough material right now for 3 albums worth of music. I'm just trying to decide what I want to do because I was sort of the last album I did was Morning Starlet, and I'm very proud of that album. But it's difficult, and the whole selling CDs or selling downloads, it's not very profitable, and you can't really tell if people are digging it. So I was sort of turned off by the whole thing and thought like, why am I gonna do this anymore? But what changed that for me was playing with Kasim Sultan. Andy, Danny, and myself, we got to be Kasim's backup band over our little spring break there, and just to see how much work he put into doing his original thing. And we played some nice venues, but there were small venues too, and how Kasim really put his all into that and tried to make sure it was good and really had integrity and had to just keep creating as an artist. That was really inspiring to me. So I think I am going to make another album of some kind. I'm just playing around with what it's going to be because I have 2 sort of ideas right now. I have enough material to do another like sort of poppy power pop 2-part invention kind of thing like I did with Andy Ascalise, and I also have a lot of stuff saved up for like this more like heady rock concept album thing, which is more appealing to me, but is going to be harder. So I definitely want to do something, and every time I get some downtime, I'm working on it. I'm writing music on planes. I'm working on it. I'm trying. So thank you for that question, Denny. Let's go over to YouTube and see if there's anything there. Okay. I think I answered that. Okay, here we go. Here's a question from Guitar Madness. Do you use any tube amps? I sure do. I have, in that room over there, which is my garage, I have a rack full of tube amps. I have, I'm very fond of VHT amps, which are now Fryette, and Engel amps. I love those. I have an Engel Steve Morse head, which I love, and I used to use it a lot before I got the Helix, and occasionally if I'm doing a recording for someone and they would prefer to have a real amp mic'd up, that's what I'll go get. And I also have a VHT little Pitbull combo that's like the greatest go to a bar gig. It's 30 watts. Yeah, it's a Pitbull like special 30 or something like that. It's 2 channels. It's amazing sounding. It's ridiculous. And I also have right here in my studio rack, if I want a different sort of color than the Helix, I have a VHT GP3, which is a tube preamp, and I have that going into a 2 notes torpedo cab pedal with an impulse response that I made myself, actually in my bathroom over there. I mic'd up a VHT cabinet with a 57, and I made my own little whatever they call it, the torpedo impulse response. I don't know what the exact term is. So, okay, let's see. Here's another question from YouTube. Am I using the JTV? That's the Variax guitar for live gigs. I'm not using the JTV, which is somewhere around here, but I am using the Variax Standard, which is actually the cheaper version of that, and I like that guitar better as a guitar. I think it just feels better. It's probably because the neck profile is a little smaller, and I have small hands, and also, I changed the pickups in there. I have another video on that you could check out. I put DiMarzio's in there, and it's a really cool guitar. So we've been bringing that out, and we use it on a song called The Vigil, which has acoustic guitar, and I have to switch from acoustic and electric, and then I have a drop D thing, and the Variax is perfect for that. And every time I play that, Buck gives me like, he yells in my ear, goes, "That sounds beautiful, man," and they want to use it more. So I think if there was an opportunity to use more acoustic sounds or other kind, because the Variax doesn't do only acoustic and electric. It does, banjos, sitars, 12 strings, all this crazy stuff. So so I am using the Variax on tour now. It's great, and in fact, our first gig of the European run, our gear didn't make it, and I happened to have my Variax with me. I had to carry it on the plane, and I ended up using that for the whole first gig. I did the entire gig on that thing. Magnetics and Variax pickups, switching back and forth, and it worked brilliantly. So thank you for that question, Guitar Madness. So back to another question here from Ross Toodill. Thoughts on the UK leg of the tour? Was it enjoyable? Absolutely. Like I said, I loved Glasgow. I loved Nottingham, Newcastle, Manchester. All those gigs were awesome. But the cool thing is, this is the first time I got to spend any time in the actual cities, aside from London, because I've been to London a bunch of times, and London's beautiful. But, Danny and I made it a point to get out. I'm talking about Danny Miranda. We made it a point to get out, no matter how tired we were, every day, and go exploring the local towns. And even if we weren't staying in the city center, we would take an Uber or a taxi and just get there. And I loved that. And I really liked checking out Nottingham. There was a cool street market where I got some stuff for my wife, and we got to check out the castle, and we went to this really old pub, which is supposedly the oldest inn in England, which was awesome. So I really enjoyed that. Here's another question. This one's from Steve Hammond. Which did I learn to play first, guitar or piano? I learned how to play guitar first, and I never learned how to play piano. And I can play enough piano to do what I have to do, and I'm getting better at it. But any like real piano player who watches me knows that that it's not my main instrument. But I enjoy playing it, and I like the challenge of playing some of those tunes. Here's a really funny story that somebody made me think about the other day. We were doing our 40th anniversary show at the Best Buy Theater, which I don't know if it's now the Best Buy Theater or the PlayStation Theater, and that was the gig where we had Alan, which is this is the last time Alan ever played with us before he passed away, and I told Alan, I was just complimenting him on his keyboard parts because of how difficult I found them to learn and to play. And I told him, I said, I had to learn that entire Teen Archer keyboard solo, and it was a bitch. It was a pain in the ass. And I learned it note for note. And he goes, "Why'd you do that?" I said, "Well, Buck asked me to learn it note for note. He really wanted it." And then Alan went to Buck and said, "Why are you torturing the kid?" Which I thought was really funny. But because it's probably something he improvised once in the studio, and here I am like an idiot trying to get every little nuance and replay the thing. And in my opinion, that's a very hard solo to play, the Teen Archer solo. So let's see. We have some more questions here. Tom O'Hanlon. Tom, I love you, man. You know that. Tom said, "Did you find it difficult jumping from guitar to lead guitar to keyboards when playing with BOC?" I think you're talking about in the context of a gig, or do you mean from bass guitar? Well, it's a little tricky sometimes when the only time it's really difficult is when I have to jump to a keyboard song where there's a lot of changes, where I have to change a lot of sounds and do a lot of setting adjustments. That's the only time. But usually the guys are good about giving me enough time to make my changes before I have to jump into that. Let's take some more Facebook questions. Let's see what else we got here. Okay. Any surprises for Columbus Day Saturday? Like I said, that's an Eric question. Another question I got here, which this is sort of like the same question. This is a question from Jeff Cook. Are you guys playing the first BOC album in its entirety at the upcoming U.S. shows as well? Well, the cop-out answer to that is that's an Eric question, but I can tell you that that's like a really special set. And again, for those of you just joining us, we did a few gigs recently where we played the entire first Blue Oyster Cult album, the debut album. And I can tell you that that's a special kind of thing because you really need an audience of hardcore fans that will appreciate that, because most of our summer gigs are going to be outdoor festivals and things like that. So if you're in a festival crowd and you're playing to people with beach chairs and hot dogs and ribs, and you launch it to Beautiful as a Foot, they probably won't go over too well, and you might lose the crowd. But yeah, so who knows if it's? I mean, we know it now. So if there's a special like gig where it seems like there's a lot of hardcore people in the audience, then you never know. Anything's possible. But I think we tried to make it a special thing just for the European run because we don't get there too often. But like I said, anything can happen. So I'm going to go take another one of these questions here. From Joe Creel. Did you okay, I posted we got to see Deep Purple play. Our last gig was at a festival in Barcelona, and we opened for Deep Purple, and we've done that a few times. And I have a picture of me with Steve Morse. And the question from Joe Creel is, did you ask Steve Morse to come on an episode of Band Geek? Now, that might seem like a ridiculous question, but the answer is yes, I did. I really tried very hard early on to get Steve Morse on the podcast. There was a gig we were playing where we were opening for Deep Purple, and I figured in my mind that, like maybe I can grab Steve Morse in the dressing room for like 20 minutes and do a little podcast, a little quick interview with him. And I tried to set it up for weeks, and I reached out to his manager, and I tried to get it happening through Ernie Ball, and it almost happened, but it fell apart at the end, and I was very I was crushed. But I did try to do that. And while we're on the Deep Purple subject here, Lee Franklin asked, "Did you get to meet all of Deep Purple?" I don't think I've met. I don't think I met the Ians, the drummer or the bass player. Sorry, the drummer or the singer. But I have met the rest of them. Obviously, Steve Morse, who I'm a huge fan of, so I've sort of stalked him a few times. And Roger Glover is a sweetheart, really really cool guy, and I'm in love with Don Airey. I have a huge man crush on Don Airey. I can watch that guy play for hours, and he's so awesome. And he is a really funny thing that happened in the last gig, because he knows that I'm the keyboard player for BOC. Every time he did something awesome, he'd be playing, and he would look over like, eh? Eh? Every time he did something slick, he would look at me and smile. It was awesome. It was like he was, doing the gig, but I was getting a private show, sort of. One of the funny, not funny, but terrifying stories I have about that is one of those gigs where we opened for Deep Purple. We were sound checking, I think, with Bucks Boogie. Now, for me, Bucks Boogie is an organ song. Can you hear this? So that's an organ song for me, and we're sound checking that, and Don Airey, he just like sits on the side of the stage right next to me. Not right next to me, but maybe like 20 feet away from me, just sitting down watching. And I have to play, there's like a little organ break there. Now, Don Airey is an amazing organ player, and now I have to play my stupid bullshit in front of Don Airey, and I was just terrified, but he was cool. I don't think I screwed up too badly, but that was, that was one of those moments that you don't want to find yourself in, but it was fun anyway. All right, let's head to YouTube for another question here. Okay, Jerry Castaldo has a question on YouTube. Is all the equipment rented at each venue, or do you have a tractor trailer lugging around your equipment? Okay, that's a good question, Jerry, and there's a few different answers for it. When we play locally, like within driving distance from the New York area where we live, we generally rent a tractor trailer, and not a tractor trailer, but like a rental truck, and we'll have all of our own backline. For most of the flyout dates, it's rented for each venue, and like a backline company will provide it. For Europe, we did a little bit of both. For Europe, our gear didn't even make it with us. There was a big mix-up, and our gear didn't show up at the airport, which was really horrible. But luckily, because I had a local gig, like the day before we went to Europe, I had my Helix and my Variax with me, and I actually carried them on the plane. So I was able to do the first gig on my gear, but the rest of the guys had to use rented SGs and Les Pauls and stuff. But for some of those gigs, we used rented backline. But for all the whole, like, France, Germany, the UK, all those dates where we were on the ground, we had a trailer with one set of rented gear. So it was still rented, but it was the same thing every night, which was cool because, oh my God, I just realized I left my freaking memory card in the last keyboard. Damn it. Okay, anyway. I'll have to call Andy and see if he got that. I can't believe all right, anyway. Brain fart. So, anywho, okay. So that's the answer to that question. Thank you for that question, Jerry. Let's head over to Facebook and see if there are any more questions here. Jarrett just said, why didn't you get taken in Europe so I could save you with my particular set of skills? It's very good. Very, very good. Okay. Who asked this? Wait a second. I just saw a funny question, but Facebook keeps scrolling up. Okay, Lee Franklin wants to know if I actually have any living space. I do. I don't live in this room. There's a whole house upstairs with, a bed and a couch. So don't worry about that. Okay. Back to these questions here. From Rosalind Judd Murray. What goes through your mind when you see that many people at a festival? The festivals the festivals are weird because a lot of the time people are so burnt out from seeing music all the time that it's like, it's just, it's like a weird thing. and and also there's just so many people, and usually with the festivals we don't get sound checks, so we're worried about other things. The festivals aren't as nerve-wracking as the small club gigs where someone's right in front of your face and can see everything you're doing. With the festival, it's sort of like, no one's right. It's not as intimate and not as intimidating. So the big crowd gigs aren't that crazy. And also, a lot of the times in the festivals, some people aren't there to see you; they're just there to hang and have a good time. Whereas at like these small club gigs, the people are there to see you and pay attention to every little thing you're doing. So that's that. Thank you for that question. Um, and here's another festival question from Laura Sharp. I think I posted a video from the last festival in Barcelona. Uh, and the question was, I'm paraphrasing some of these questions to make it work for this, but are there two stages or more at the big festivals? The way most of these festivals did it is there are two main stages right next to each other, and while one band is playing, the next band is sound checking, and while we're on stage, the people in the audience might not be able to hear it because it's not going to the PA, but we can actually hear them sound checking. We can hear like some guy playing drums, not with our song while we're playing. So that's why they have it. They sort of A/B it. And then there are some other, stages scattered throughout. Hellfest was cool like that. But Hellfest, we were in this sort of shed stage this time, which actually worked out a lot better for us. Because the first time we were on the main stage and it was a weird gig. And then this time we were in that like little shed area, and it was packed in and people were going nuts. It was a really cool gig. Okay, so let's go over to YouTube again. The Shadow Walker wants to know, is BOC the biggest band I've played with? Yes, I joined Blue Oyster Cult when I was 24 years old, and I'm 37 now, and this is still the gig I have. So yes, that's the answer to that question. Thank you for that. And let's see, any more? No, let's go over to Facebook. A question about the DirecTV audience show. How many takes? I noticed one song you were on guitar and keys at different times, so I'm guessing it wasn't live. No, it was live. I think there was one song we did 2 takes of because Albert broke a string or something, or something happened. And then we did. I think we did a few Reapers because they had this like lighting rig behind us that was moving, and they had to get that right for the cameras. But most of that show, I would say 90% of that was just the one performance of the show. We didn't do multiple versions of the songs. So yeah, I think it was just one song where something went wrong. We had to start it again. If someone was there and I'm wrong, correct me. But I'm pretty sure we just pretty much did it straight through, with the exception of Reaper, because they had other things planned for that song. Okay, I'm going to go back to my list here. All right, here's one about the first album, the first Blue Oyster Cult album. In Last Days of May, did you make a conscious decision not to do the call and response guitar lines between vocals on the verses? And this is from Jeff Zitrain. Thank you, Jeff. We talked about that, and because all right, when we were rehearsing, we took a few days to rehearse the whole first album, and our first plan was to try to do it exactly like the record, and it didn't. It sounded fine, but the thing about that is, being a debut album, and considering the fact that they played these songs over and over again, the arrangements sort of morphed over time into something else. So, and in one case, there's a song called "I'm on the Lamb, but I Ain't No Sheep," and that actually morphed into an entirely different song that showed up on a later album called "The Red and the Black." But a lot of those tunes, like not we, but they, over the years, kind of added to and changed. And it just felt strange to go back to the original versions when they've tweaked them already, and optimize them for a live crowd. So we did toy with doing the thing where I played the little licks in between, but then we just ultimately decided to go back to the regular way we play it because it just works better. And there's another question about that particular song, and it's a musical question. And someone wants to, Tony Rodriguez wants to know, is there harmonic minor in My Last Days of May lead? Good ears, Tony. Yes, there is. And let me take a second to do a little music break here. So for the non-musical, I'll explain what that question means. So everybody knows a major scale, you know, the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, right? Now a minor scale, it's like the same kind of thing, just a few notes are flatted. But this is what a minor scale sounds like. Let me move my mic out of the way here. Sorry about that. So there's your minor scale. Now, in the case of Then Came the Last Days of May, we do it in B minor. The solo section is B minor, A, G, F sharp. Okay, so here's the deal. Let me see if I can do this with my keyboard here. Okay. So there's your B minor chord, right? That works fine. Here's your A chord. No problem. Here's your G chord. And that's fine. And here's your F sharp chord. Okay, now that note there that's rubbing, that's an A note. And the reason it's rubbing, and now it's not necessarily wrong, it's okay to play that, because, you know, let me just record this really quick. Give me a second. You know what? I'll even show you guys what I'm doing. How about that? Alright, so I'll open up Pro Tools here. Look at this. Alright. What tempo is that? Like 140 maybe? Let's try 160. Okay. So I'm going to lay this down real quick. Good. Oops. Throw a little quantize on there. What the hell happened there? Hold on. Sorry about that. There we go. All right. Good. There we go. That's enough to start with. All right. So we have our chords going. So no problem. So that sounds okay to me. That's not necessarily a problem. And that's that A note, which is fine. But personally, I like to alter the scale. I like to make it so instead of playing that A note over this chord, I like to sharp that note to an A sharp to make it fit the chord, which is that note is in that chord. So when you take a B minor scale and you sharp the A, it turns into a B harmonic minor scale. So that sounds like this. Sorry. It's got a cool sound to it. So in my mind, I'm usually changing with the chord. So here's how it works. I'll let it play one more time. Okay. And now, here's another thing that you can take into consideration with that. You don't have to play only harmonic minor on the F sharp chord, because now if we do it the other way, check this out. Here's a harmonic minor scale on all those chords. So harmonic minor works fine on the B minor chord. So now we go down to the A. Okay, maybe not that one. The A chord has an A in it, obviously, so you might want to avoid that note on that chord. Now to the G. That's fine. And back to the F sharp. Obviously, that works. So a lot of times I will like bleed over with harmonic minor stuff, and I'll show you what that sounds like. On that chord, I make sure I'm on the natural minor. Now, you don't have to do that, because I can just play natural minor. Or blues. So that's what I'm thinking about while I'm playing that solo. I hope that was interesting for some people. Okay, let's do another YouTube thing. Let's see if there's any more YouTube questions. Okay, my name is Gar. Gar Mistra. Hi. What's the kind of music your fans might be surprised to hear that you like to listen to and or play? I love, I mean, I don't know if this is a secret, but I love gypsy jazz. I play it poorly, but I really like it. I love listening to it. Obviously, Django Reinhardt is the master of that. And I love, another guitar player I really love is Stockolo Rosenberg, who, if you don't know who he is, just go check him out. He's a badass. So thank you for that question, Gar. That was a very good question. Okay. Here are a couple equipment questions. This one's from Phil Smith. Which modelers are you seeing the most of on tour? I would have to say on this particular tour, we saw mostly Kempers. And we saw a few Axe effects, and I believe I was the only person to use the Helix, which is odd to me because I'm such a huge Helix fan. I love it. But yeah, mostly the Kempers, and I think like for example, all the Queensrÿche guys were using Kempers. We played a gig with, what was the name of that band? I'm drawing a blank now. Anyway, well, there was another band. There were a few bands using Kempers, and I think the reason for that is the Kemper is very good in the fact that you can profile, which pretty much means capture the sound of your amp and bring it with you, and that's very, very appealing. Now, whether that's, you know, better than an Axe Effects or a Helix, I guess that's up to personal preference or marketing, but a lot of guys use that, and it was just like, you know, it's just like I have my amp. I mean, I was talking to Michael Wilton from Queensrÿche about it, and he goes, this is the amp I would use on tour. I profiled it. It's just like having it with me. So that was the first one. Then Will Ross asked me, Have I had any issues taking the Helix on flights? Nope, not at all. I mean, the Helix has been holding up really, really well. The only problem I've had with it is an occasional squeak in the pedal, the controller pedal, which in no way affects the performance of the unit. It still works fine. But when I had some downtime, Line 6 took care of that for me. Their customer service is phenomenal. So there you go. You know, we love Line 6 here. Shout out to Audio Technica also. I use an Audio Technica microphone and an Audio Technica wireless pack with the band. So thank you guys for that. Also, I should say this right now. If you would like to contribute to the show and you'd like to see more stuff like this, please use the link. It's listed here. It's not a clickable link. Excuse me. It's just go to richiecastellano.com/tipjar. You go to that in your browser, and then it brings you to a Streamlabs PayPal form. So we really appreciate you guys doing that. This week's contributors that I want to thank are Rob Crossland and Tom O'Hanlon. Thank you guys very much. We really appreciate what you've been doing. If you shop on Amazon, you can use our Amazon link. And to find that, you just go to riotcast.com/bandgeek. There's an Amazon banner at the top of the page. And you click there before you do any of your shopping. And a small percentage of your purchase goes to supporting our show. And it doesn't cost you anything extra. So we really appreciate everybody who's been helping us out with that. So that's really great. Okay, so I think we got... Okay, I think I got some of the... All right. Let's see if there's another Facebook question here. I haven't done that in a while. Okay, Derek Spence would like to know what I do in my free time. What I do in my free time, besides, you know, doing the podcast, I guess that's not free time anymore. That's still, like, work-related. But, you know, when I'm not working on this or original music, I build these. This is my hobby. And this is a lightsaber. This is my stupid thing that I do. And basically, I buy them empty. And I put electronics in them. I put speakers. I put LEDs in there. This one is... I just happen to have this, you know, sitting here. I'm like always like fidgeting with these at home. But this one I have... This is an Obi-Wan Kenobi Episode 3 lightsaber, so I have him in there.
Hello there.
And there's like a stick that goes in here, a plastic polycarbonate tube, and you beat your friends with it. It's really fun. So yeah, thank you for that question. And yeah, you know, I like sci-fi, comic books. You know, I'm a geek. I like all this stuff. So I love going to the movies. I can't wait to see Spider-Man. So all that good stuff. Thank you for the question. Going to another question. Now this one's from YouTube. This is a technical question, and I'll try not to bore anybody with this. Is there a way of getting rid of the humming noise when using the 4-cable method with the Helix? And that's from Stiliano Band. All right, so this is what you need. Don't drop it, though. This is a ground lift, and this is something that every musician should keep at least a few of in their gig bag. You should have this in your wire bag, in your gig bag, in your backpack, in your suitcase. I have these everywhere. I have these like Clouseau has weapons in his apartment. That's how many of these I have. And you need multiples of these because sometimes you might need one of these on the Helix. Sometimes you might need it on your amp. Sometimes you might need it on both. We, with the band and different types of power that we encounter on the road, sometimes it's fine. Like sometimes I'll just plug in to, and this, this is actually going to answer another question that I have here. Okay, so I'm going to answer two questions at once. Another question from Midglade. Sorry, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right. What do you do when you play with BOC and using the Helix? Do you go directly to the front of the house with a monitor, or do you use the 4-cable method and an amp? Okay, so that's the second time I said 4-cable method. I might as well explain what that means really quick. Again, this is technical talk, and I apologize to anyone who's completely bored by this. But 4-cable method. Okay, so if you have a device like a Helix or any of these like effects processor-y things, what 4-cable method allows you to do is you can take your real amp, your tube amp that you love, whatever it is, like say you have a commercial or something, and you love the way this amp sounds, but you want to incorporate that amp into the architecture of your digital pedal thing. Like in my case, it would be the Helix. So in that case, what you can actually do is use a 4-cable method, and you're actually taking the preamp section from that beautiful tube amp that you have, and you're finding a way to insert it into the chain of your digital device, so you can place effects before it, like say you want to use a wah-wah that goes before it, and effects after it, like a delay or a reverb. And that's a very handy thing to do, and a lot of guys do that. I don't do it because for me, easiness and consistency are key, especially, and my philosophy on that was reaffirmed on this European tour, because there were a lot of these festivals where we got no sound check. So I didn't have time to tweak an amp and worry about where the mic placement was. It was grab it and growl, was what they call it. And having the Helix with all my presets in there directly into my ears was perfect. I just plugged in and I was ready to play. That is priceless. That is clutch in those sorts of situations. And that's why so many of those bands who do those type of gigs, that's why they were using those so frequently. So I don't use it. I do have a monitor, because the first time I brought back the Helix, now the Helix is not just an effects processor, it also has all the amp sounds, has everything I need in there. I just plug my guitar into it and I'm done. But the first time I used it, I didn't have any stage volume. I went right to the PA, and it was fine for me because I had it in my in-ear monitors. But Eric actually freaked out because he said it sounded like I wasn't playing, because he wouldn't hear me. He couldn't hear me at all. So what I ended up doing is we rent a like a 112 powered speaker, usually a QSC K12, and I have a separate feed with a separate EQ from the Helix that goes into that, and I can tweak that for the room a little bit, and that's just for the stage and a little bit of feedback. And this system is really great, and I can't recommend it enough to people who do these types of gigs. But now the other question from Stiliano Band is, how do you get rid of that hum? Now, okay, in my case, when I'm using the Helix with oh, thank you very much. Who was that? Oh, thank you very much, Dyke. Appreciate it. Awesome. So the question they were asking is about the hum. Now, when we do my simple setup with just the Helix and the amp, sometimes it works. You plug it in, there's no hum. But other times, there's a hum from somewhere. So, oh, that was from, David Steichleiter. Thank you very much, David. Appreciate it. So sometimes we have to put the ground lift on the Helix, and that solves it. Sometimes the ground lift goes on the monitor, and that solves it. Sometimes we use 2 ground lifts on both. Sometimes you have to make sure they're plugged into the same power. Sometimes they got to be in separate power. It really depends on your situation. We're constantly experimenting with these and trying to get the least amount of hum. There are some situations, some venues where the power is just weird, and there's going to be hum no matter what. And you would think, and for example, in those situations, we'll unplug my monitor, even unplug it from power, unplug the cables, and it still hums. So in that case, you think, why is the Helix humming? It's just there are certain venues where you're going to get hum no matter what because of the power, and there's nothing you can do about it. But again, ground lifts, every musician, go buy these. You can get them at Target, or Radio Shack or Amazon or whatever. Just get them. Get a bunch of them and put them everywhere. So let's see if there's any more YouTube questions. Oh, here we go. This is cool. This is a recommendation from James W. Thank you for this, James. He recommends not using a ground lift, but getting HumX, which is like a hum eliminator piece of hardware. So if you're running into that problem, check out what James said. He said he's not associated with them, but it solved all of his Helix hum problems. Thank you very much for that, James. That's something cool to check out. Okay. Oh, John Johnston. Okay, that's a cool question. Have I gotten any word if Band Geeks will get a chance to play on Rock Legends 6? You know what? I think that's a great idea. I don't know if we're going to get to play, but what my ideal plan for that would be is I already spoke with Eric about this, and he said he would help me set it up. the plan is this. Now I don't know what's going to happen because if you obviously you've been to the Rock Legends cruise and there's a lot of stuff going on, but my idea would be for them to hopefully find a space for me where I can show up with my little Zoom recorder and maybe an acoustic guitar or something and just have a hang. And anybody who wants to come by can be on the podcast. And anybody, if anybody wants to come and be part of it and be in the audience, and I'm sure I'll be there, and I'll get anyone else who wants to join the band, and we can play some tunes, probably acoustic, just to keep it low maintenance, and just so we can record it and video record it. I'm definitely into doing that. You just reminded me that I have to look into it. It's just I've been so busy doing these gigs because we're so slammed right now. I haven't even thought about that. But thank you for reminding me, John. That's a great idea. So let's take another question here. This one is from Spec, and the question is, which drum software do you use? I have a few. I think he's referring to the Band Geek videos. The drum software I use primarily, we have the Roland TD11 drum set back there. Sometimes we'll use the sounds that are built into that. Usually not, because it only produces a stereo signal, which I can't mix later on. But what I'll do is I record the MIDI information from that, and I'll play it through two programs. One is called BFD. BFD3 is what I use, and I have like a custom kit in there that I made. And most of the time it's this one kit that I made, which is mostly like a DW kit with Ludwig snare and Zildjian cymbals. That's the kit I usually use in there. But for example, like when we did the Hard to Sunrise video, I will custom make a a drum kit to try to get it to sound as close as I can to the original recording. And that's a big part of it, because if your drums sound close, the recording will sound close. So that's one thing I use. The other one I use is something called, it's in the Native Instruments contact player. It's called Abbey Road drums, and they have the different decades, the 60s, 70s, 80s, and modern. And there's two kits in each of them. And that's a really cool plugin, and it's stupidly easy to use. It has different, style presets. So it's either BFD or Abbey Road drums. Those are the two that you're hearing most of the time. Here's one from Axeman14. Which Variax cable do you use? I use the regular line 6 one. I got this from line 6. It's a very beefy cable, but if you don't have this for the Variax, this is primarily an Ethernet cable. That's all it is. Let me see if you can see this. Yeah, see it? It's just an Ethernet cable in this cool shell that keeps it protected. But yeah, that's what I'm using. I'm using the regular line 6 Variax cable. Thank you for that, Axeman. Okay, let's head back to Facebook here. Okay, here's one from my buddy Josh Haynes. Hi, Josh. Have you tried using the archetype model on the Helix on BOC shows? Actually, I did. Now here's the model he's talking about. This is the archetype is an amp setting inside the Helix that sounds freaking awesome. So. Whoops. Who was that? Wait a second. Oh, thank you, Cheryl. Thank you very much. Appreciate that, Cheryl. So here's the archetype. Which sounds amazing. This is a Tele. This has low output. And with this particular amp and this guitar combination, it sounds phenomenal. On the road, I use the Axis, and it doesn't sound that great with the Axis for some reason. When I do use the Variax, which isn't quite as hot as the Axis, the archetype sounds really good. But for the Axis, I mainly use the Angle Meteor. But I love the archetype, but not really for BOC. It's a little too much. So thank you for that, Josh. Let's take another Facebook question. Thank you guys very much for joining me and asking your questions. I really appreciate it. Oh, great question. AJ Erico, are there any new Tiger's Fang plans in the works? No. I would love to do another Tiger's Fang. It's just that it's like it's a lot of work for not a lot of return. It's a labor of love, Tiger's Fang. And I love doing it, but they take months to do now, and I just don't have the time. And I know it's not about the views, but for example, if we'll do a Band Geek video, it'll take me like it takes us a couple hours to record it. Takes me a couple hours to mix it and edit it, and then that'll get like 50,000 views. Whereas Tiger's Fang will take us weeks to film it, months to edit it, and it gets like 3,000 views. So it's like diminishing returns, and that's why we stopped. I have the whole story planned. I know exactly what happens to all the characters. I have a script written out for the. I wouldn't do episodes because the reason why we did the short episodes when we first started Tiger's Fang is because when we started it, YouTube had a 10-minute upload limit. You couldn't do more than a 10-minute video. But now it's unlimited to my knowledge, or maybe 4 hours or something. I don't know. But so I'll get to that in a second, Laura. Just write it. Laura has a tip jar question. Just write it right here, and I'll answer that in a second. Thank you for asking. So yeah, I know everything that happens. I have it, and I wouldn't want to do the small 10-minute episodes because we don't have to do that anymore. I'd want to do the next half of it would be just one long movie. But I have like some lofty ideas that aren't exactly low budget, and I've considered I've toyed with the idea of doing a Kickstarter for that. But two things: I would be very heartbroken when we inevitably didn't make the goal, and I would also be screwed if we did make the goal and then I had to make it. My dream is to get a backer and go to Hong Kong to some movie studio where they're all rigged up for this and just like bang it out over a couple of days, because I feel like we could do that, but that's not going to happen. So anyway, that's one of my dreams, to finish that. That's like one of the things on my list of things I'd like to accomplish, but might not happen. But anyway, thank you for asking about that. Okay. Here's another question. I'm going to start winding this down. Here's a fun question from J. Jun Lee. Is that a Rickenbacker 325 I see in your Bohemian Rhapsody video? He's referring to the shivers down my spine thing, and I'll explain. Okay, yes. The answer is yes. Hold on. Okay, so this. Shit. Whoops. Anyway, this is my Rickenbacker 325, right? Which is one of my favorite guitars. It's very cool. Not a Queen guitar, okay? Now this is my Queen Brian May guitar, okay? So here's the deal. In the part when it goes, send shivers down my spine, body's aching all the time. That part, shivers down my spine. On Brian May's guitar, this is just a replica, but not a very good one. But on Brian May's guitar, the bridge is down here, or the tailpiece is down here, the bridge is here, and there's a little area where you can pluck behind the bridge, and that's where it gets that sort of thing. This guitar doesn't have that. This is, not an exact replica of the Brian May guitar. However, this is the only guitar I own that has that. So for that particular part, I did that. So that's why I used this guitar for that video. Thank you for the question. All right. So let's take one more YouTube, if there is one, and one more Facebook. Okay, here's an okay, this is an interesting question, and this is from Jeff Newman. Can the Variax palm mute yet? Okay, yeah, I know what you're referring to. And okay, a palm mute. This is a palm mute. For those of you who don't know what a palm mute is. That's a palm mute. The Variacs can tend to have a little trouble with that. Here's how I treat that. I can get that sound out of the Variacs. I have to do it differently. I have to play differently. Sometimes I treat the Variacs like it's a different instrument. Especially like, okay, instead of trying to look at the Variacs and think, man, this thing doesn't sound the way it's supposed to sound when I play the way I would play on, say, a normal electric guitar or a normal acoustic guitar. I mean, there are limitations to it. It's a phenomenal piece of gear. I love it, and I use it every night. But instead of, getting bummed that it doesn't behave the way my normal guitar does, I focus on saying, this is the piece of gear I have right now. How do I get it to do that? So a lot of the thing with the Variacs is your picking, I find, and how sensitive you pick it. So yes, it's a bummer that you can't just pick the thing up and palm mute the way you would normally. But I've sort of found a way to adjust the way I'm playing to get the same sound. I mean, in the middle of the vigil, when we do that, I'm full out drop tune metal, like just doing that. I'm genting. But I'm getting that sound. I just have to adjust my playing a little bit. And the other thing is, when I'm playing the acoustic part in the beginning of the vigil, I'm picking very lightly. Because if you pick it too hard, it starts to, ruin the illusion that you're not actually playing an acoustic guitar. So I'm just basically working within the parameters of that piece of gear to try to get it to sound as good as I can. I'm sure it's going to get even better with updates and whatever, but I'm really happy with it now, and I'm just just like the way I think about it is like, you don't play the way you play on a Strat on a Les Paul, because they're two different animals. So I mean, they're still a guitar, and the mechanics work the same way most of the time, but I feel like the guitar makes you it forces you to play a different way. And that's how I treat the Variacs. Like, it's a different instrument altogether, and I have to understand, what it does. Like, and every one of my guitars has something like that, which is why it's not weird for me. Like, my Axis, the Slime Burst Axis that I play on every gig, there's very little room between the high E string and the edge of the neck, and I'm very conscious of it, and I'm always worrying about, sliding off the edge of the neck, because it happens a lot. But, when I'm playing the Telly, that's not a problem at all, and I can dig in a little more and not worry about getting up there and hitting things a little harder. So thank you very much for that question. And let's take one more Facebook question. For those of you just joining us, someone just asked a question about this. Joe Gaetano, I did talk about the new album stuff, and the answer is I don't really know yet. I just to reiterate, I answered this earlier in the show, but I'll answer it again since it's coming up quite a bit on the questions. Yes, I mean, Eric announced that. I don't know anything more than the announcement. It's still being negotiated, but we've been working a lot. So we've been focusing on getting through these gigs. Our summer schedule is very packed. And but when I heard that was a possibility, I got very excited and wrote a bunch of tunes. I wrote like 8 tunes to show the guys. Got a little maybe too excited, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. I really hope I get to contribute in some way. That would be really awesome. But we'll see what happens. I'm very excited about the possibility and looking forward to doing it. It would be awesome because I never got to really, work on that kind of stuff with these guys before. One thing I did do, there is something if you feel like digging. I did get to write a tune with Eric for the game Warhammer Online. We actually had an assignment from the game makers, and the assignment was to make. We had to write the song about this character, the Slayer, which is a dwarf who uses an axe, and they wanted something in the style of Iron Maiden. So that was really cool, and Eric actually he came over my house and he played this. So he played that for me. He goes, "That's got to be the intro." I said, "Okay." And then I had this like really fast sort of harmonized thing, and we put it together, and just like that, the song was done, and we played it for the guys from Warhammer, and they wrote the lyrics for it, and it was really cool. So if you want to check out our non-official collaboration, it's official but non-BOC collaboration, it's called "Kiss My Axe," and it's from Warhammer. Laura Sharp wants to know why they didn't hire Iron Maiden. Well, because we did it for free because we were fans of the game. Both of us were playing the game at the time, and we really wanted to go to the headquarters of where they made the game, and we got to see how they make an online role playing game, which was really cool. Here's another question from Rick Hellinger. I just listened to the 4.0 surround SACD of Secret Treaties. The extra channel really gives the individual elements space to breathe, and I was blown away by Eric's singing and Buck's super snarly guitar tone. Is there any chance I could convince Buck to go back to an SG, please? I know he has one. He has Gibson made him a like a white SG similar to the one he used back in the day. Really, it's about being comfortable. I mean, at this point, he's probably played that Steinberger more than he's played the SG. So I mean, he loves that guitar, and he just feels at home on that. In the same way that the Red Special is Brian May's guitar, and he only wants to play that guitar. Buck, I know, only wants to play that Steinberger. He loves it. That's his baby, and that's that he just feels completely free on that guitar, and I get that. That's how I feel on the Axis. I'd rather play that than everything. But when I'm home, I love playing this boy, this Telecaster. It's just a lot of fun for me. I like Brent Mason and guys like that too. So there you go. But I think I'm running out of voice, so I think I'm gonna stop here. Let me see if anything else I missed. Oh, here we go. Laura Sharp, Streamlabs says I have to join for 24. Oh, weird. You don't have to join Streamlabs, and let me look into that really quick. You shouldn't. Laura's asking you about the donation thing. Let me take a look. I'm gonna try the link myself. Okay, basically, you should just see this. Yeah, this is weird. No, it's okay. When I'm doing it, I just see this PayPal thing. It just takes you to a PayPal form. You shouldn't have to join to pay anything. No, it just works on PayPal. So I'm sorry if you're having trouble with that. Do me a favor, private message me, and I'll help you out with that afterwards. So I apologize because a few people have told me they've been having some trouble with the Streamlab things. I might put up an alternate thing because Streamlabs isn't working out. The nice thing about Streamlabs, and the reason I use it, is because while I'm doing one of these shows, if you make a donation, it pops up on the screen, and it's a fun thing. But if it's really a pain in the ass for everybody, I'll consider doing something else. So yeah, sorry about that, Laura. Please private message me, and we'll suss that out for you. So thank you very much for contributing to the show. And that's it. Again, use our Amazon link. richiecastellano.com/tipjar if you want to contribute to the show. And thank you so much for joining me tonight. This was a lot of fun. And to see the replay should be up on Sunday. And so for those of you who are here and stuck out the whole hour and 15 minutes, thank you very much. And I'm going to sign off now. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.